it was a lot of breakout rooms. A lot of breakout rooms with like different tech departments in each one, and then there was one that had like acting and another one where they were like filming. It was very confusing.
Because of the pandemic, the Advanced Drama Honors class had to make multiple changes to its usual production process for the latest play, The Misanthrope. Watch this video to find out how the costume department adapted to create and design costumes remotely.
I chose to be a part of the costume department because I mean, first of all, I like fashion, like in general, but especially with theater, it's really fun to have a concept that you sort of have to abide by.
Last year, for both the fall play and the spring musical, I was costume lead. And since I am personally, in my opinion, really bad at acting in these historical, like European type dramas, I decided to, again, focus on the tech aspect. And since costume was something I was experienced in, that's what I decided to follow through with, yeah.
I chose the makeup department just because I hadn't been super involved in tech in a show before. So when shows were in person in both freshman and sophomore year, I chose to audition and act. But this time, since it was a Zoom play, I decided to dabble in doing tech, and I really enjoy makeup and have been doing it for a while. So I thought it would be a fun way to use some stuff that I know about it and apply it to the show and create some fun artistic looks. So yeah.
First of all, we need to kind of plan out the show, like what is our theme, what time period are we going to set it in? And since this is a historical kind of show, we did have to try to fit into like 1800s French fashion, which can be a challenge since it's not something we're used to seeing.
The process is I feel like it starts off kind of slow, but basically we started off with drawing a sketch of a certain character.
These were original ideas, although we had to change a few color scheme depending on what they had at home. My lamp is very bright. But definitely for Alceste, it was written in the script that the character is a male. He wore more earthy tones like greens, browns. For this actress, it was originally supposed to be a more elegant look, so it would have been golds, browns, and like paler colors. But then we saw what she had at home. She had a really nice costume already. It was a light blue with a collar already. So we just had her wear the costume she had at home and switched out the colors for Filant and Orante.
Now, the first step that we took for the costuming was actually having everybody measure themselves at home, which it made it a little bit more confusing because some people measure themselves in inches and some in centimeters. So that was like a little annoying.
After planning the costumes and getting their measurements, we have to get the proper items, whether it's looking through the loft, seeing what they have at home, or actually making a few items. It was a lot. And then this year, unlike other years, we had to deliver the items, whether it was pickup or straight to their houses. And that's pretty much the process, really, for costumes. Because they just go home, try it on, make sure it looks good, make sure it looks like good with the lighting and everything. And then we would just film it.
I think the pandemic has definitely changed the way that makeup and costuming both can just interact with actors. Especially, I guess, costuming is definitely a challenge just because of like trying things on, and there would be like a long process of fittings and then just making sure that like things would work for characters. But because there was less of that, it was more just like they got the plan started and they had to just run with it, basically.
Because usually we all have like 2 people in costuming and they have like measuring tapes, and we just like bring people in and do it, and then they're done, and then do another one, and then they're done. So that part was very different.
I mean, with facing struggles, I feel like any performance online has its own struggles. The hardest part and the biggest struggle with costumes probably has to be getting people, I don't want to say look good, but some people don't have proper like costume pieces with them at home. So we did have to organize a few pickups. We did have to get a few items from the loft, which meant we had quite a few on-campus work days, at least for the drama department, at least for the costume department. Yeah.
It felt like a little disconnected compared to usual. It was still very collaborative, but not as easy to like ask questions and go back and forth between like different departments to make sure that we're like having the same vision. Like the makeup department and the costume department have to like talk a lot because it's like connected. And it was kind of hard to make sure that we were all on the same page about what character looks like what, because the technology element of like rehearsal and stuff.
I mean, differences between virtual and in-person shows, I guess how much of the costume we need to plan out has to be the biggest difference. Because usually, don't you know how if you're on stage, you see full body, which means you need to get shoes, pants, top, accessories, everything to match and look cohesive. But since most of the time the actors are sitting and it's chest up, we didn't really have to focus on the lower half unless they had a moment where they had to get up and we could see like full body. So I feel like it was definitely easier in that sense. We had a lot less work to do for this show than normal.
In my experience, it's usually like, well, typically they're not that hard of projects. Like it's not like you have to make like a whole dress from scratch. It's usually just like adding some details onto it or altering like the size or something. So usually it's one person who does it because it's way easier just to assign something to one person and have to figure out, oh, you're gonna do this part and then we're gonna have to give it to you and you're gonna do that part. So it's typically more individual, but if someone needs help, there's obviously like a whole bunch of people who can help them. I really liked the collars that, there's like multiple costumes that have this collar just in different colors that Naomi made. She like crocheted, I think she crocheted these really fluffy, ruffly collars that look very like fancy and just had different colors for different characters. And I think it tied everything together and it also made it more dramatic, which fit the show really well. I would describe the costume department as a fun, collaborative, and creative sort of group where you get to sort of bring up ideas with other people and like just talk about it and figure out what will work.
It definitely like made me realize like the work that needs to go into like doing a play, because when you're an actor it's more of like individualized, well, for the most part just with like memorizing your lines and stuff, but there is collaboration. But yeah, so definitely I would say join, and it's very fun.